Welcome to the blacksmithing shed. Today I'll be starting part 1 of making swords out of leaf springs. So I started this project earlier, but I hadn't started the channel yet. However, I did record some videos, so I am going to show you some things that little clips from those videos that I edited together, so you can get some of an idea of what happened, and then I will catch you back up to the present. Out of this piece of leaf spring that I got a while ago. The idea being that this is 2.5 inches wide, so I could have 1 inch and 1.5 inches over here, and then 1.5 inches, and then 1, so it already has the taper that I'm looking for. And then I forged the point and the tang for 2 that are sharp and 2 that are dull. Here's what I have. It's going to take a really, really long time. Or, if I set my expectations too high and then it's less than I thought, then I'd be relieved. Alright, update. Things have not taken as long as I thought. It's only been like half an hour maybe. And I have gone almost through that. That's the first one. Alright, it is finished. I've cut these, I think, and the grinder kind of clean up these holes so that they're more kind of like valleys so I don't get cold cuts. Alright, so I think it's Tuesday. I think I cut these on Friday or Saturday. It's time to forge them. Alright, the fire is ready. Actually kind of more yellow on the camera. It's a bit more orange in person. Interesting. Oh, anyway. I think the first thing I'd want to do is straighten them. Alright. So all of them are like this. Alright. I just finished straightening them out. And they are... this one is the least straight. This is how the other 3 are. So that's pretty good. So I have to wait for these to air cool. Actually, no. I'm going to put them through the assembly line again. I think I'm going to do all of the bevels. Alright, it's a bit less rough than it was before, since I used a smaller hammer after the larger hammer. I'm finishing this up, and then set this aside, work on the rest of them. Then I can have all this straight, and then I just need to work on this part, and that's it. But, before I do that, I might just get the other ones roughly forged in. And that brings us back to the present. So this is pretty straight, or straight enough, rather. Edges aren't all perfectly straight, but they're thick enough to where I can just grind to one side and it'll work out. Now, this here is going to look more like this, after I grind it, but I don't really have... Either I'm not skilled enough, or I don't have the tools to isolate the material like that. So, alright. This one is going well. It's pretty wider and thicker. I think it just has more material in general. And I had a problem. I didn't pay attention sometimes when something was in the forge, and I left it in for a bit too long. Now, the good thing about having a hot forge is that your piece can heat up to good temperatures, so where you can easily forge them, and it doesn't take long. The problem is, if something is thin enough, it can melt somewhat easily. And the other two, well, they kind of just melted in half. Should be in here somewhere, maybe. Here's one, and here's the other. So I think this is the one where it melted twice. I just had to cut it off because there were. See if I can find. It looks something like this. This is what the end used to be on one of these, and it just plain melted off. Probably more like this, and that's not really good, because this, if I try to forge that back, it won't forge properly, and there will be air bubbles, and I just can't really do that. It also formed cracks and things, so I could actually kind of forged some of the pieces off, and took the rest of this kind of stuff off with the grinder. So the idea of having 4 very similar swords, I don't think that's going to happen. Or so I thought. I was kind of disappointed that I wouldn't get 4 similar swords. But then it occurred to me that this was the medium-sized piece that I made these out of. This is the smallest piece. And the largest piece, well, we kind of cut that up a bit and kind of cut it down the middle. That's when I saw it was plausible. Or by we, I mean, one of my brothers was forging with me, and he's also into blacksmithing, but he's much older, so he's kind of off on his own, so he's visiting, and we cut, this used to be a single piece, and I got another piece like it, and that turned into this. But you just wanted a bit of practice with forging bevels, and, well, cut this off. So the piece left is this, but that was only half of it. The other half, I tried to forge, but for a long time, I couldn't, because I couldn't get a hot enough fire, but then I just tried building a really big fire. I could kind of do something, but it was taking forever just to get this. I decided it'd be much quicker if I were to just cut it with the grinder like that, and my brother showed me that you can do this with it. And it wasn't as difficult as I thought. So I ended up doing this. So that means I have more material and hit the bucket. So I can cut this the same way, and I might be able to get even longer swords, because so far it looks like these are arming swords, one-handed swords, to use with a shield generally. But this, I might be able to make my favorite kind, the hand-and-a-half sword, or maybe just maybe something closer to an arming sword that can be used in two hands, rather than a lighter kind of long sword that can sometimes be used in one hand in certain instances. But we will see. Now, as far as this one goes, I'll probably get pretty short ones out of these, but it is long. There's just this kind of hole in there where it was all assembled together. And there's also, as you can see here, this is the bottom piece. The shortest piece, but it has this kind of taper on the thickness. I don't know if I can use this material. Maybe for guards or something. But I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do anything with that, because this isn't really intended to be used as blade material. It's meant to be used for the back of a truck. So there'd be the bed here, and then there'd be the front over there. If this is the left side, the driver's is over there. Anyway, they're used for suspension on a truck, not for blades, except it's made of the best steel that I can use. Because there's steels that I could use, except they're not for beginners. They're really difficult to work with, so I can't really use them. But this is something that's not difficult to use, and it has really good results. Or at least that's what my bladesmithing book tells me. So what I'm thinking is I might just cut it straight down the middle and make narrow swords that are, well, yeah, just long, narrow swords, maybe sabers or rapiers. The problem is when it comes to the guard for a rapier, I don't have a welder, but maybe by that time I would have a welder by the time I get to the guards. But who knows? Maybe I just have to wait for a welder. I'll see what I'll do with this, but I will be able to make it YouTube channel style, show you the process to get from there to here, and hopefully to the finished product using this, because there's still more material. So that will be in part 2, and as of now, it's still light out. It's about 3:30, so I have time to cut this down the middle and then forge it. And I don't know how far I'll get. Another problem I ran into is that sometimes I forged it kind of a bit thinner than I intended. Other parts were thicker. Something I realized was, if you forge it thinner, more towards final shape, you have to make it more accurate, because it can't be as off, because if this is to one side too much, you can't really grind that. You can't fix that in the grinding. But if it's something like this, totally. So if I'm more experienced, I think I could pull that off a lot easier, but it's going to be tricky. But I think this down here got a bit too thin. And what I'm going for is, by the time this is done, by the time the grinding is done, I want to see if I can get a distal taper on this, possibly, and have this be about 1/4 inch thick and this about 1/8 of an inch thick. Maybe something different, but the problem is this is getting a bit too thin. So what I'm considering doing is it gets thicker and wider here, so I might just turn this into tang material, and it would be, I would just cut off part of the tang and it would be a bit shorter than it would have been, but the base will be wider and thicker, so that'll be the plan. So I guess it is, oh, another thing. The reason it's vertical is because when I made the videos before the channel, I just kind of naturally made it vertical, and so in order to not have the weird things on the top and bottom that are blurry, I just made the rest of it vertical. So that is the plan. Part 1 of Leaf Spring Swords, and I'll now make part 2. Bye.